Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Uncommon Leadership Interview Series. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, uncommonteams.com. Today, I'm talking with Mark Hunter, CSP. Mark is recognized as one of the top 50 most influential sales and marketing leaders in the world. He is author of 3 books, High Profit Prospecting, High Profit Selling, and his newest, A Mind for Sales. Mark can also be heard on the Sales Hunter podcast, one of the ones in my list, and a second podcast he co-hosts with Meredith Elliott Powell called Sales Logic. His online learning program, the Sales Hunter University, is ranked as one of the top 10 online sales platforms. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Hey, thank you for having me on today. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Now, you and I overlap in a number of ways. We share a last name. We both spent time in Seattle and in Omaha, Nebraska, and are both on a journey to seeing people as people and leveraging the unique gifts that each of them brings. As you reflect over your journey on that, what stands out as most impacting your progress to achieving what you have?
Well, I think the diversity of the opportunities I've had. Yes, I've always been in sales or marketing, but it's been the diversity of the organizations I've been able to be part of, been able to lead. It's the diversity. And when I mean diversity, I mean just terms of completely different styles of go-to-market strategies. And as a result, then I've had a chance to meet just a lot of different people. And one of the things that I regret early on is I failed to realize the full value in people and situations I come in contact with. Because I thought I was, I was brilliant. I thought I had my act together. And in my mid to late 20s, I was achieving significant success in corporate America, and my arrogance got the best of me. I mean, without a doubt, my arrogance got the best of me, and it literally caused me to stall out because I couldn't see opportunities to learn. I couldn't be open. I couldn't be receptive. I wasn't allowing myself to be influenced by other people. I felt it was just my job to influence others. No, it's really our job is to be influenced by other people. And so that really, I think, um, hindered me. Now, I didn't realize it at the time. That's looking back 30 years in the rearview mirror. But you really do see how we become the sum of the 5 people we associate with the most. Pick your friends wisely. Our moms were pretty smart, you know. They said, be careful who you play with at school, right? Yeah. Um, but what I also fail to realize is that life is continuous learning. I've always been a voracious reader. I've always had an inquisitive desire to learn. I never want to grow old not knowing something. But you have to do it with a degree of tolerance and acceptance. Tolerance to accept other people's opinions, maybe counter to yours, but acceptance as to what they mean, and then how could they apply in your life. And that's something that only comes, I think, with age, old age. No.
Experience, anyway. Some of us managed to get that experience at a younger age. You and I have taken a bit longer to get through it.
Yeah, there's something to be said there because in my last book, I talk about 2 individuals who very much influenced me a lot. And these happen to be 2 bosses of mine. And it's interesting. They really influenced my life a lot. I wish I had allowed them to pour even more into me. I really do, because I really wonder what would have been different. Neither of them at the time realized they were pouring their life in me. They were just doing their job. They were just going out doing their job, but they were impacting me. And you stop and think about that. How do we learn from those around us? And many times the best people we learn from are the ones who don't even realize they're impacting us. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, who has shaped an incredible business built around the belief system that he learned from his junior high, middle school football coach. Wow. Go figure that one out. But this was a middle school football coach who had imparted some wisdom, not just on him, but on the entire team. Mm-hmm. But it resonated. And I'm sure that coach did it every year. I'm sure that coach did it every year. But it just challenged his thinking. And 20 years later, he took that framework and used it as the core to build his company around. Very successful company. That's cool. That's neat.
Yeah. How many kids has that coach impacted? And how many of them did something with what the coach tried to impart? And then how many of them took it to the level that this person did?
See, now that's a great question, because you stop and think about it. That coach probably shared it with hundreds, maybe even thousands of kids over the course of his career coaching football. And I'm sure he carried it over into the classroom and everything else. But how many ultimately did something with it? Probably very, very few. Maybe only one or two. Now, others might say that, oh, well, thinking back, they might, okay, yeah, get that. So they were influenced by it a little bit, or shall I say, they were aware of it, but they truly didn't embrace it and run with it. Probably not more than maybe a couple people. And that brings up a good point, because I think as leaders, we have to realize that our number one job is to influence and impact people in a positive manner. And if we can influence and impact people in a positive manner, it's amazing what we can achieve. Because here's the thing, I'm in sales. I've spent my career in sales, but I've also spent my career in leadership, leading sales teams. And one of the things that I found is that the definition of sales and the definition of leadership is the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. It's helping others see and achieve what they did not think was possible. That's what that middle school football coach was doing. He was imparting some wisdom on his players to try to help them see and achieve what they didn't think was possible. Pretty cool. That's something to get excited about when you wake up in the morning, to say that, hey, I've got the ability to go do this. That's neat. That's absolutely cool.
And that's exactly why I asked you to be on this interview series, Mark, because I've been listening to your podcast for most of the year now, as I'm learning how to do sales for my business. And I was struck by how much of almost every guest you have on your podcast, you and they were the ones where you're on talking on something on your own. We're talking about exactly the same things that I talk with my clients about. And you're in sales. I'm doing sort of executive coaching, helping leaders in software figure out how to figure out where they're going. But it's all the same process.
It's the exact same process. People think for some reason that leadership is some strange thing that people do. Then they think sales is some strange thing that people do. But you know what's interesting? Both of those are at the fabric, at the core of what we all do all the time. Because, the first person in the morning who we lead is ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's, and I look at it this way. If we can't lead ourselves, why would anyone want to be led by us? It's just not going to happen. That's one of the big differences between leading people and managing people. You manage activities, you lead people. Oh, wow, that's a throwaway line. I mean, everybody's heard that line 10,000 times, but let it sink into what it means. The example I love to use of a good leader is you take a business where people actually show up for work. Okay, so I know in this post-COVID world, a lot of people are working from home, but you'll understand the premise here in just a bit. When the manager When the leader is not there, does the organization fall apart? If the organization falls apart when the manager is right there, when the manager is not there, then guess what? That's a manager. If, on the other hand, when the manager is not there, but wow, things just happen, and it almost moves to a higher level, then you know what? That's a leader, because they've trained and they've empowered the organization to do things, just to do it. That's what leadership is all about. The ultimate goal of a leader is to raise up people to be able to do everything you're supposed to be doing and more, so that you can move up the ladder. I mean, the idea is that we're constantly lifting people up the ladder and helping people get further up the ladder wherever we are in the ladder. It's not a matter of throwing people off the ladder. No, it's making a bigger ladder. And I want to have a big ladder, because that people, if we are allowing people to grow, and I firmly believe people do want to grow. People want to be mentally challenged. Now, there's a difference between mentally challenged and mentally stressed. Mentally stressed, we all desire some level of stress in our life. It's a matter of how we choose and where we choose it. But we all want to be mentally challenged. What's that mean? That means we're worth something. That means we're valuable. That means my employer doesn't just see me as a thing, but my employer truly values my opinion. I have a person on my team who does a number of very routine activities, but she does them very well. And I sent her a note this morning. I said, "Hey, I want to get your opinion on this. Here's some things I'm looking at, and would share with me your ideas, and let's get a conversation going. Let's talk about it." See, now I could easily have blown that off. Said, "I don't need her." No, but I want her thinking at a different level. I want her raising her game, because if she raises her game, guess what? Those around her raise their game, and guess what? Then the company does better. That's what success is all about. It's really unlocking the talent we all have, and we all have tremendous talent.
Yes.
Far more talent than we ever realize.
Yes. And success isn't necessarily that I'm getting promoted to a higher job title, a higher level in the job ladder. Success means something different for each of us, and we each need different things to nourish us. However, if we're not growing the way that we're thinking, if we're not expanding our perspective in whichever ways interest us, then we're stagnating. And if we're just stagnating, then we're probably not really, and I haven't found anyone in my experience anyway, who we're not really happy with our life. There's something missing. We may not know how to go find that. We may not even know how to get started figuring out how to go find that. But if we're not learning and growing, then we're just stuck, and we're probably even dying.
You bring up two observations I'll share. When I left corporate America in 1998, I had a great job. I was director of sales, 700 salespeople, and it was great. But looking down the road, I was afraid of becoming stagnant. Yeah, I was actually afraid of becoming stagnant, because my fear was that somewhere along the line, you're going to get pushed aside, and you're going to get pushed into a cube, the proverbial cube. And I never wanted to stop growing, because even then I felt I was getting so focused on just running the sales force, doing this, and I didn't have time to breathe to see what else was out there. And that was one of the reasons I jumped, because I wanted to really continue expanding my growth. And second piece is this: Warren Buffett and his sidekick, Charlie Munger, and Bill Gates were being interviewed. This was probably about, 6 or 7 years ago now, by Becky Quick of CNBC News. And Becky asked all three of them, what book are they currently reading? What's on their nightstand? The proverbial question. And I don't remember what Bill Gates said. I don't remember what Warren Buffett said, but Charlie Munger said, I'm reading a book. And at the time, he's like 87 years of age. He says, I'm reading a book on electrical engineering. And it was like, Becky, quick, she was taken back. She was like, what? Help me understand this. And he said, well, I just have always felt that I've never quite understood enough about electrical engineering, so I needed to learn more. Now, stop and think about the magnitude of this. This gentleman's 80, I don't know, 86, 87 years of age. He could get a pass on not knowing something, but he was actively learning, actively learning. That was a wake-up call to me. That was one of those seminal moments in my reading patterns, in terms of how I view my reading pattern. And it just accelerated my reading pattern dramatically, because and in all different areas. Because if this guy's 87 and can be learning more, I need to learn more. And that's something I think we have to create a view of desire, a passion in people we lead. To me, that's fun. That's what leadership is all about.
Yes. Yeah, I find everyone's born wanting to learn and grow. I don't know many babies who have not figured out how to crawl and then walk unless they had some physical impediment. And even then, I'm sure that they wanted to, even though they physically couldn't. And for some of us, that desire to learn and grow is stoked and fired and burns ever brightly throughout our lives. And for others, it's damped down or even quenched somehow. And that breaks my heart when I see someone like that who thinks that they don't want to learn or doesn't know that they have the capability to learn, because it's all there. And even if the fire has been quenched, it can be rekindled.
Oh, it's all there is an understatement. This is why I think, the average person says, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do this because there's nothing to learn here. The great performer the top performer in anything, top leader, will look at everything as there's something to learn here. There's something to learn here. It's why the average person's the average person, because they spend all evening binging on Netflix, binging on Hulu, or binging on whatever it is. And the top performer is saying, hey, I want to get better at this. I want to get better at that. And my own house, we don't have cable. I've never seen Netflix. I have never seen Netflix. I don't care about Netflix. I don't care, because I'm not going to waste my time. I would rather, the other night, I was home and I dug into a book and read the book. And you know what? Tonight, I've got a whole stack of books here on the floor. And you know what? I'm going to read another book tonight. And what does it do? It helps shape my leadership. It helps shape how I interface with people. Some leaders would say, oh, but that puts you at a disadvantage because you don't know what's going on Netflix. I hear it from enough other people. I do look at the internet. I'm on the internet. I look at news sites. I know what's going on out there, but I don't need to be consumed by, watching all 9 episodes of something, or it's the same thing. Leaders are very focused, and you have to just understand what are you focused on. And what you focus on, surprisingly enough, is what your people will focus on. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I'll share a very quick story. It just popped back into my head the other day. I'll go ahead and say the company Mattel Toys. 20 years ago now, maybe even 25 years ago, they had a CEO there. She was not a nice person. I'm dead serious. She was. I won't say the name, but people can Google it and find out. And it was brutal. And she ultimately was fired by the board. New CEO came into the company, and I happened to be working with him and his staff about 6 months after he was there. And the guy was incredibly gracious. We went out to dinner one night. There was about 8 or 9 of us, and he asked, the gentleman who was at the restaurant door while we were standing there waiting for our car, and he asked him, "Hey, how's your day been?" He's really engaged and just asked. And this is a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And at that time, they still had their fleet of jets. They still had a helicopter at that time. This was a titan of industry, and he's actively engaged. And meetings we were having at a hotel, and people come in and do prep the coffee and all that sort of stuff. And he's engaged with, "Hey, how are you doing? Thank you for doing what you're doing." And I asked some of his staff, I said, "Okay, I didn't know you're the CEO, but this has to be different." He said, "Oh yeah, it's really different. Wow, we're still in shock how nice he is versus the other CEO." And I wasn't going to let the opportunity go by, so I asked Bob, the new CEO. I said, "Bob, I'm incredibly in awe of your graciousness, and your staff has noticed that too. Are you always this nice?" And in his aw shucks, he grew up in Wisconsin. He said, "Yeah, my mom always told me to be nice." But then he dropped the bomb. He said, "Here's the deal. I am nice to people because I really do want people to succeed." But he says, "Here's something I found, and this is the bomb. When I'm nice to other people, I make better decisions." Think about that. Now, it's interesting. He was CEO for probably about 12 or 13 years. During that time, the company went through a series of just major issues. He was on the board of directors of several other corporations, which went through CEO deaths, which went through just major issues. And you know what's interesting? His own board never even looked at firing him, even though there were some issues. No. He was looked at as the leader. These other boards he was on of major corporations, if I were to say the names, you would recognize him in a heartbeat. He was seen as a leader. You see, because what's interesting, he saw being gracious and nice to other people not as a weakness, but as a position of strength. That's powerful. That's a powerful leadership lesson right there.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a paradox that the more vulnerable and open we are, the more power we actually have to achieve the things we want to achieve. The more able and capable we are to have the impact we want to have, and for that impact to have the impact for it to work to for us to have that impact in a way that works for the people we're meaning to impact, rather than harm them, in a way that lifts them up, not shuts them down.
That is so spot on, because you know what's interesting is a rising tide lifts all boats. Okay, that's an expression we've all heard before. But think about that for a moment. A rising tide lifts all boats. And if I'm a rising tide, that's pretty significant. Flip side is this. Look at a forest. A single tree standing on the side of a mountain is soon swept away because of wind, storm, whatever. But that tree amongst a forest of trees will survive and thrive because it's part of a forest of trees. You see, leadership is not a singular activity. Leadership is a plural activity. Leadership is not something we do to people, it's something we do with people. And when we do it, when we look at it that way, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah. What else should I ask you today, Mark?
You can ask me anything you want. I don't really care. We're having a great conversation. This is good.
Let's go back a minute to diversity, which we touched on at the
Yeah.
beginning. Are there certain aspects of diversity that you found to be more useful than others?
Yeah, and what I mean when I use the term when I use the term diversity, I'm not talking about ethnic, I'm not talking about
Mhm.
racial, I'm talking about diversity of business philosophies. Because something that I found in the three corporate companies I worked at, each one had a very different strategy as to how to achieve the financial goals they were wanting to achieve. Dramatically different, dramatically. And initially I thought, how can that be? But once you begin to embrace that there's other ways, it's like if I want to go from LA to New York and I'm going to go by surface road, there's 10,000 different routes I could take. 10,000 different routes. And I say, well, this one's the shortest miles. I know this one's shortest mile, but you know what? Maybe a little bit longer one that actually you can go faster or there'll be less congestion, whatever it might be. So what I'm saying here is that diversity, and then to a certain degree, yes, it was in the first company I was in. On the second company I was in, I had the opportunity to work for a female president, and initially I was like, when she took the job, I was a little bit struck by it. That's interesting because I was expecting this gentleman to get the job, get the nod. She got it. And it was very interesting, but within probably about 3 weeks of sitting in meetings with her, you're going to go, oh, she is brilliant. She is brilliant. The insights that she brings. And what I found, again, when you look at the diversity, there are some companies where things are done through bluster. It's the noisy wheel. It's just the noise of stuff. And in other companies, it's the quiet demeanor. So again, you look at that different approach and different feel, and that's what we have. We don't want, if there was an organization made up of just people like me, it would go bankrupt tomorrow. It would go bankrupt because I'm not that good. And if you had 100 me's, oh wow, man, that'd be scary. At 1,000, really be scary. So in other words, we are at our best when we fill our world with different opinions. It's just like a football game. There's 11 positions on offense and 11 positions on defense. They all can't play quarterback. Thank goodness. Could you imagine if you had 11 quarterbacks out there? It just wouldn't work well. But we have to understand the lane that everyone plays in. And we have to accept the fact that when we're in a lane, that's the lane we're in. That's the lane we're in. And ultimately achieve the best. When you do that, that's how you're lifting up those around you. And that's how a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. And it's fine if that lean doesn't feel like a fit. It's fine to not want to be there long term or even short term. However, if that's where you are, then the better you serve that lane and do what that lane needs you to do, the much more likely you are to be able to move into whatever other lane feels like a better fit. And you may even discover that there are ways that that lane actually is a perfect fit. And even if it's not, like you mentioned earlier, there's always something to learn from that lane that will help you be better when you move into that other lane.
There always is. I mean, it's just in whatever lane you're in, do the best job you possibly can. And I always say in sales, my objective with each conversation is to earn the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to have a conversation with that person again. Guess what? That's the same thing in doing our job. Our job is to do what we do the best we can, so we earn the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to move to the next position when the next position arises.
and even to continue doing our current
Exactly.
job
Exactly.
tomorrow and the day after,
Yeah.
so that we have the wherewithal to make that move later on.
Yes. Yes. Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to leave our listeners with today, Mark?
Well, I think the big thing I want to leave our listeners with is leadership begins within, begins with ourselves. And we can't lead anybody else until we first lead other people. 2, assume responsibility. Assume responsibility. Now, I want to delegate responsibility to anybody and everybody. But at the end of the day, it comes back to me. I'm the one who's going to be held accountable. It's my job to lift people up. And if I can't end the day without my people being stronger and better than they were at the start of the day, then guess what? I didn't do my job. Because leadership is no different than sales. It's about impact and integrity. I got to have impact on my people. I have to do it with integrity. What does that do? That allows us to leave a legacy with our people. So our impact lives on long after we're gone.
That's a perfect ending to a fabulous conversation, Mark. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, the best way is my name's Mark Hunter, and I kind of go by The Sales Hunter. So you just go to thesaleshunter.com. We've got a lot of assets out there that you can download. We've got some leadership tools. We've got some prospecting and sales is my main piece. But I firmly believe that leadership plays a key role in it. So we got things out there that you can download. But from that site, you can navigate over and see all kinds of stuff that we have. So it's thesaleshunter.com.
You have an ebook there for our listeners, correct?
Yes, there's an ebook right now. It's 50 prospecting truths, and they can download that. They can grab it, but there's a ton of other. If you click up in the resources tab, there's a lot of other things up there, and I firmly believe this. Life is not a solo activity. Life is a community. And when we embrace the ability to share and help others, it's amazing how it changes our outlook on everything.
Thank you so much, Mark, the Sales Hunter. Sales, leadership, software, leadership, it's all leadership. And we're all learning from each other. And as long as we're all learning and growing, then the world's going to become the place we all want it to become. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on Uncommon Leadership today. If you found these stories interesting, inspiring, and illuminating, sign up for my newsletter. Hop over to uncommonteams.com and use the form at the top of every page. You'll be the first to know about every new episode of Uncommon Leadership. You'll also discover how you can build uncommon teams. If you'd like to chat about doing that yourself, email me, michael@uncommonteams.com, or use the contact form on my website. Thanks so much.